Hi. So I wanted to create a video for people who are new to creative writing and also for people who are returning to creative writing after spending some time away from the practice. I wanted to quickly address some of the points that I usually go over with students in introductory courses, just as a kind of refresher or introduction to the field. So there's a ton of worthwhile books out there that address very similar points to these. Definitely check those out. These points are things that just have been helpful to my students or things that have been helpful to me personally that I wanted to share with you all. So here's the first point. When you write frequently, writing becomes a habit. So writing every day works really well for some people, but the reality is that it's not possible for everybody. So there's other ways to get your writing in. Some people set an appointment, like a weekly appointment with themselves on their calendar. Some people use an accountability buddy to make sure that they and their accountability buddy both get their writing done each week or each month. It's also really helpful for a lot of people to set a timer for 5 or 10 or 30 minutes to help them avoid distraction. It's very helpful for me to set my phone onto airplane mode so that I don't get any texts or interruptions. Some people have a certain time of day that they write. This has worked really well for me recently, so I have two notebooks that I write in right before I go to sleep. So one is a journal or a type of diary where I just keep notes about my day. And most of these notes won't ever turn into anything, but they're just kind of keeping the wheels turning. They may or may not turn into a piece of creative writing, but either way, I'm getting the pen moving. And then the second notebook is where I write one page, just one page per night of an ongoing project. So it's a way that I can hold myself accountable to chipping away at a larger piece that I'm working on. So, as you know, the accountability brigade of creative writing doesn't exist. They will never pay you a visit to make sure you've done your writing. And that's why all the writers I know have to implement certain tricks to hold themselves accountable or just to kind of get the work done. So, the second point is about drafting and revision, and it's summarized by one phrase, which is shitty first drafts. So Anne Lamott coined this phrase in an article that you can find very easily online. And the point of a shitty first draft is that no matter how badly your first draft is going, just keep on writing it. You can always revise it later. So occasionally we write something, and while we're writing it, we're feeling really good about it. Like, yes, this is excellent. I can see exactly how this is coming together. That's a really great day. Very often, though, as you know, that doesn't happen, right? So we'll write a couple of sentences and then we'll stop because we feel like we're already off to a bad start. I might as well quit while I'm ahead. That being said, reclaiming the shitty first draft allows us to continue drafting, continue writing, kind of let go of the judgment that we're already putting on our piece of writing because we know we will return to it during the revision process. So it's a great antidote to writer's block or frustration or low self-confidence about writing. Just push through and write something, even if you think it's terrible. It's never as bad as you think it is, and you can always return to it afterwards. The next point that I want to share is about revision, and it's putting your draft into a drawer and coming back to it the next day. So you want to take a little bit of time away from your piece of writing after you've gotten into a place where you feel like it's in some semblance of completion, because it is possible, I think, to overwrite and to really suffocate a draft and squeeze the life out of it. By doing too much to it, it loses its life. And I think this most often happens when a writer doesn't have enough distance from her draft and she just is working on it, working on it, working on it. You need to take some time away so that you can see it with fresh eyes. We can break down the word revision, just like the poet Adrienne Rich did. Revision, seeing anew. So you want to have new eyes with which to see your draft. When you take some time away, you can do that. So now I want to go over a few things that I cover with introductory students that are sort of technique tips. The first is to remember that creative writing is a practice, just like exercising or learning to play music. If you have a technique that you're trying to achieve, but you don't quite know how to do it yet, that's okay. Because it's a practice, creative writing can't be learned in one day. It has to be done over and over and over, right? As I said, just like exercise or playing music. So there might be a technique that you want to do and you don't know how to do it yet. That's why we emulate pieces of writing. So we'll read an essay or a story or a poem and we'll think, I really want to do that. And then we'll study it really closely to see how did the writer achieve that effect in the reader. I also want to encourage you to play with language. So what this does not mean is making your writing fancy. You don't always have to use words like cerulean and aquamarine, right? But you do have to pay attention to the way that your words sound. So it's useful for us to remember that language is built with sound. At its very basis, language is song. So think about how you're singing a song, have fun singing your song. Think about how do you want your song to sound? Will it be in a major key or a minor key? What instruments do you want to bring on the stage? You're the composer of your piece of creative writing, and you're thinking about the sonic qualities of the language in addition to the content of the story. I also want to encourage you to use concrete language instead of abstractions. So instead of writing something like, my soul felt forlorn, which is very abstract, I want you instead to think about the details of the situation and use concrete language. So instead you could write something like, staring into the dark kitchen pantry, I could count what was in there on the fingers of one hungry hand, a can of pureed pumpkin, an unopened bottle of yellow mustard, and a nearly empty jar of peanut butter. My feet felt cold on the tile floor. I shut the cabinet with a click. So we're achieving the same emotional effect, but we're using concrete language to deliver it. Do you see how much more you get from that story than my soul felt forlorn? Abstract language is really forgettable. Concrete images are the things that stay with you. So the way to achieve concrete language is to use your 5 senses. So really think about telling your story through all of the 5 senses. We're a very visual culture, so it's easy to forget about things like smell and taste. But using these tools helps the reader feel and empathize with us as they're reading our writing. All of this kind of falls under what has become a cliche in creative writing, which is show, don't tell. But it's really about using concrete sensory language. I hope this was helpful to you. As creative writers, we're always writing with an audience in mind. So we know somebody else is going to read our writing, and that's why it's very different than a diary or notes that we keep for ourselves. And maybe that's where the writing starts. But as we revise, we're thinking about somebody other than ourselves is going to be reading this. You're their guide or their docent, you're their curator. So your readers are looking to you to give them the information they need to understand what's going on. Readers are also empathetic and generous. So they're coming to the page, they want to hear what you have to say. That's just a great thing to keep in mind. My final piece of advice is this. This is the last thing. And it's don't delete anything because you might use it later. So of course, as we're drafting and as we're revising, we're deleting things, but what I'm trying to say is to take what you delete and put it into a different document or put it on a different piece of paper because you might want to use it later. It might become useful for that piece, but more often it becomes useful for a completely separate piece. So often when I'm writing an essay or a poem, I'll find that I'm actually writing what will become 3 or 4 things because all of these ideas and connections are coming into my head, and some of them make it into the piece, but some of them I'm able to table them and use them to generate the next thing. And that's why I don't delete anything. It's also really helpful to have a document of sentences or words or thoughts that you didn't use. that before that you can use as inspiration for the next piece. So next time you're feeling blocked or you're drawing a blank, you can look to that document and start with one of those sentences. All right, that is all I've got for now. Happy writing, and I will see you later.